scream. I lose the house. I lose the car. I lose my life. I didn't want to scream. I wanted to disappear into the secret. Take it all. Take everything. Until there is nothing left to lose.
Before I start this story, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, and turn on notifications. Leave a comment below if you've ever had to fight for what's yours. Your support goes a long way in helping me create this content. I remember the exact temperature of the room when I realized I was about to cross a line I could never uncross. It was 64 degrees in Julian Sterling's library, yet my skin was burning. I am 58 years old. I am a widow. I am a woman who spent 30 years being proper. And there I was, pinned between a mahogany bookshelf and the most powerful man I had ever known, the man who signed the checks that kept the roof over my head. If I scream, I thought, I lose the house. I lose the car. I lose my life. But as his hand, aged but steady, slid across the silk of my blouse, I didn't want to scream. I wanted to disappear into the secret. At nearly 60, you think you're done with the fire. You think you're just a housekeeper, a shadow in a mansion. But that night, in the middle of a storm that cut us off from the world, I realized that some taboos aren't just mistakes. They are the only things that make you feel alive when the world has forgotten you exist. My name is Martha. For 28 years, I was Martha Davis, the wife of a mid-level accountant in New Jersey. We had the white picket fence, the 2 kids, the Sunday roasts. We were the definition of American average. But life has a way of pulling the rug out from under you when you're too old to catch your balance. When David died of pancreatic cancer, he didn't just leave a hole in my heart, he left a hole in our bank account. The medical bills were a monster that ate our savings, our 401k, and eventually, my peace of mind. At 57, I found myself with a mortgage I couldn't pay and a resume that said I was excellent at being a housewife. A skill the modern world doesn't pay for. That's how I ended up in Greenwich, Connecticut. I took a job as a live-in housekeeper for Julian Sterling. He was 72, a titan of the hedge fund world, a widower himself, and a man whose reputation for being difficult was legendary. The estate was a cold, cavernous monument to wealth. 14 bedrooms, a professional-grade kitchen I barely used, and a silence so thick you could choke on it. I was invisible. I was the woman who ironed his $500 shirts, the woman who made sure his kale salad was chopped to exactly half-inch squares, the woman who disappeared into the servants' quarters before he poured his first scotch of the evening. I was safe. I was bored. And I was desperately, agonizingly lonely. It began with the eyes. You know the feeling when someone is watching you, not because they're checking your work, but because they're checking you. It started about 4 months into my employment. Julian I still called him Mr. Sterling, then started spending more time in the rooms I was cleaning. If I was dusting the library, he was there, supposedly reading, but the pages of his book never turned. If I was polishing the silver in the dining room, He'd wander in to check the vintage of a wine bottle. One Tuesday afternoon, around 3 p.m., I was on a step ladder in the parlor, cleaning the crystal chandelier. The sun was hitting the crystals, throwing rainbows across the room. I felt a presence behind me.
Be careful, Martha. That's a long way down for someone with your delicate frame.
His voice was like gravel and velvet. I looked down, my heart skipping a beat. He was standing right at the base of the ladder. He wasn't looking at the chandelier. He was looking at my legs. I felt a heat crawl up my neck. I was wearing my standard uniform, a charcoal skirt that hit just below the knee, but under his gaze, I felt naked. "I'm quite sturdy, Mr. Sterling," I managed to say.
Sturdy? No. You're resilient. There's a difference.
He reached out and stabilized the ladder, his hand resting just inches from my ankle. He didn't move it for a long time. The air in the room felt like it had been sucked out. From that day on, the invisible wall between us started to crack. He began leaving me notes. Not about grocery lists, but about the weather, or a poem he liked. Small, breadcrumb-like clues that he was thinking about me when I wasn't in the room. Then came the night of the nor'easter. October 24th. The forecast had warned of heavy winds, but no one expected the storm that actually arrived. By 7 p.m., the power in the mansion flickered once, twice, and then died. The backup generator kicked in, but it was only wired for the security system and the refrigerator. The rest of the house plunged into a deep, terrifying darkness. I was in my quarters, trying to read by candlelight, when I heard a crash from the main house. A tree branch had smashed through a window in the solarium. I ran through the dark hallways, my flashlight beam dancing off the expensive oil paintings. When I reached the solarium, glass was everywhere, and rain was pouring in. Julian was there, trying to pull a heavy tarp over the broken pane. He was soaked to the bone, his white shirt translucent against his skin. "Mr. Sterling, you'll catch pneumonia," I cried out. We worked together in the dark, the wind howling through the hole like a banshee. Our hands met as we gripped the tarp. His skin was freezing, but the contact sent a jolt of electricity through me that made my breath hitch. When we finally secured the window, we were both drenched, shivering, and trapped in a corner of the house.
The driveway is blocked,
he said, his voice low in the dark.
The gates won't open. It's just us, Martha. Just us and the storm.
He led me to the library, the only room with a working wood fireplace. He told me to go change and bring my clothes to dry by the fire. When I returned, wearing my thickest wool robe and leggings, he had already changed into a silk dressing gown. He was holding 2 glasses of a dark, amber liquid.
Suntory Hibiki, 21 years old. It's better than medicine for the cold. Sit, please.
I sat on the edge of the velvet sofa. The fire crackled, casting long, dancing shadows across his face. For the first time, he didn't look like a boss. He looked like a man vulnerable, tired, and deeply, hauntingly handsome in the way only a man of 70 who has lived a hard life can be. We talked for hours. Not about the estate, but about our ghosts. He told me about his wife, who had died in a cold, sterile hospital bed 5 years ago. He told me about the daughter who only called when she needed an increase in her trust fund. And I told him about David. I told him about the house I was losing, the fear of being an old woman with nothing to her name.
You have beauty, Martha.
He whispered, leaning in.
And you have a soul that this house has been starving for.
He reached out, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. I should have pulled away. I thought about the professional boundaries, the 20-year age gap, the fact that I was his employee. But his touch felt like water in a desert.
Are you afraid of me, Martha?
No, I whispered. I'm afraid of what I want. He didn't rush. He was a man who knew the value of patience. He began to describe things, how he had watched me in the garden, how the way I tucked my hair behind my ear drove him to distraction. His words were more intoxicating than the whiskey. Every compliment was a brick removed from the wall I had built around my heart. The physical contact started slowly. A hand on the shoulder. A lingering touch on the wrist. Then, he took my hand and kissed the palm. It was a gesture so old-fashioned, so reverent, that I felt my eyes sting with tears. No one had looked at me like I was a treasure in so long. The wind outside was screaming, but inside the library, the air was thick with a different kind of intensity. The fire had burned down to glowing embers. Julian stood up and pulled me to my feet.
I know this is wrong.
He murmured into my hair.
I know the world would call me a predator and you a victim, but they don't know the silence of this house. They don't know how much I've missed the feel of a woman's heartbeat against mine.
I looked up at him. It's not just the house that's been silent, Julian. It's been my whole life. When he kissed me, it wasn't the tentative kiss of a first date. It was a collision of two people who knew they were running out of time. It was desperate, flavored with whiskey and salt. He led me upstairs to the master suite, a place I had cleaned 100 times but had never entered as an equal. In the darkness of that room, with the silk sheets cool against my skin, the years seemed to melt away. I wasn't 58. He wasn't 72. We were just two bodies, finding warmth in the middle of a cold, indifferent world. Every touch was an act of rebellion against our age, against our roles, against the loneliness that had threatened to swallow us whole. I knew, as I lay in his arms that night, that I was risking everything. But for the first time in a decade, I felt like Martha, not the widow, not the housekeeper. Just Martha. The morning brought the cold light of reality. I woke up in his bed at 6 a.m., the storm having passed, leaving a bright, mocking sun reflecting off the snow-sleet mix outside. I panicked. I gathered my clothes and practically ran to my quarters. But I wasn't fast enough. As I was crossing the back hallway, the front door chimes rang. It was Julian's daughter, Sarah. She had a key. She was early.
Dad, are you okay? The lines were down. I was worried.
I froze. I was still wearing my robe, my hair was a bird's nest, and I was holding my work shoes in my hand. Sarah walked into the kitchen just as I was trying to slip through the servant's door. She stopped dead. Her eyes traveled from my messy hair down to my bare feet, and then to the hallway leading to her father's bedroom.
Martha, what on earth? Why are you dressed like that? And why were you coming from my father's wing?
My throat went dry. My heart was a trapped bird in my chest. If she told the agency, I'd be blacklisted. If she told her father to fire me, I'd be on the street by noon. The storm, Sarah. The window broke in the solarium. I was helping your father, I stammered.
Helping him? Or helping yourself to his checkbook?
Her voice was pure venom.
I knew there was something off about you. You've been playing the grieving widow to get into his head, haven't you?
The threat was clear. She didn't just see a woman, she saw a threat to her inheritance. The power Julian held over me was suddenly weaponized by his daughter. I realized then that my romantic night had a very real, very ugly price tag. For the next week, the house was a war zone of silence. Julian tried to act as if nothing had changed, but Sarah was everywhere. She stayed at the estate to help with the repairs, but we both knew she was there to guard her father and his money. Julian called me into his office on Friday evening. He looked older than he had during the storm.
Martha, I spoke to Sarah. She's demanding I let you go. She's threatening to go to the board to claim I'm being unduly influenced due to my age.
My heart sank. And what did you say?
I told her to leave. But Martha, she's my daughter. And she's right about one thing. This house, this life, it's a cage. If you stay, it will always be in secret. You'll be the housekeeper who sleeps with the master. I can't do that to you. I won't let them turn what we had into something dirty.
He wrote a check. It was for $50,000. Severance, he called it. But we both knew what it was. It was my freedom, and it was the end of us. I looked at the check, then at him. I could have fought. I could have stayed and demanded he choose me. But I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. He loved his daughter, despite her flaws. And I loved my dignity. Keep the money for the house, Julian, I said, my voice trembling. But I can't stay. I won't be a secret hidden behind the silver polish. We didn't even kiss goodbye. We couldn't. Sarah was in the next room, listening. I packed my single suitcase, walked out of that mahogany door, and didn't look back. It's been 8 months now. I used the money he insisted on wiring to me, not the $50,000, but a smaller, fair amount for my work to move to a small cottage in coastal Maine. It's not a mansion. It's 4 rooms and a porch that looks out over the Atlantic. I spend my days working at a local florist. My hands are stained with soil and sap instead of silver polish. Sometimes, when the wind picks up and the rain starts to lash against my window, I find myself sitting by my small electric heater. A glass of cheap wine in my hand. I think about Julian. I wonder if he still sits in that library. I wonder if he's found another, invisible, woman to fill the silence. I feel a lingering guilt. Did I use him? Did he use me? Was it love, or was it just two people drowning who decided to hold on to each other for a few hours? The guilt stays. It's a quiet hum in the background of my life. I lied to my children about why I left Greenwich. I lied to myself about being above such things. But then, I look at my hands. They don't tremble anymore. I'm not afraid of the mailman bringing bills I can't pay. I traded a piece of my soul for peace, and at 58, I've learned that peace is a rare and expensive commodity. You're listening to this because maybe you feel invisible too. Maybe you're looking at your life and wondering if the fire is really out. Before you go looking for warmth in the wrong places, listen to me. Financial vulnerability is a trap. It makes feel like a luxury you can't afford. Always have a get out fund, no matter how small. Loneliness has a scent. Predatory people and even lonely, well-meaning people can smell it on you. It makes you a target. The employer-employee line is there for a reason. When you cross it, you lose your voice. You can't complain about the work when you're sharing the bed. Age doesn't make you immune to passion, but it makes the fall harder. At 20, a scandal is a story. At 60, it's a social death sentence. Family will always protect the money. Never underestimate the cruelty of a child who thinks you're stealing their inheritance. A secret is a heavy thing to carry alone. If you choose that life, make sure the person you're sharing it with is strong enough to help you carry the weight. Forgive yourself. We do what we have to do to survive. If you've traded your dignity for a roof, don't hate yourself. Just make sure it's a roof you eventually own. I'm okay now. I'm Martha again. The Maine air is cold, but it's honest. What about you? Have you ever felt the pressure of survival pushing you into someone's arms? Have you ever had a secret that could destroy your life? But it was the only thing keeping you warm? Please, share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. We are a community of survivors, and your story matters just as much as mine. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. It helps us bring more real, raw stories to light. Thank you for listening, for empathizing, and for being here. Until next time, take care of your heart and your bank account. Good night.